Internet. Mike and Andy here, World Vox headquarters, Brea, California. We are on a roll, my brothers and sisters. We are on a roll.
You cannot stop us now.
And more interviews. So we're going to interview today a guy who worked in the faith-based office, the faith office, a neighborhood development office for President Obama.
Yeah, he was basically he represented faith outreach for the White House.
You didn't read the book yet. So you cannot speak authoritatively. I have read the book. And he's got a book out called Reclaiming Hope. Andy heard him on another podcast and went, oh, this guy's going to give a really interesting perspective that it's kind of fishing around the same ponds of what we've been talking about with Jesus and politics. And so read the book earlier this week and just sat down and had a great interview with him. As always, we are thrilled to be a part of your life. We want to hear from you. So voxoc.com is the church. voxpodcast.com is the podcast. Live show coming up April 20th. Andy,
yes.
Are we full?
By this time we're going to be full.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can check with us in a waiting list and whatever else.
Yeah, sure.
We're just continually shocked that that people come and people are excited to come. And so, man, we love it. And if you're one of our Patreon supporters, we cannot thank you enough for your kind support of us. And if you want to join them, there are all sorts of levels and prizes, and not prizes, gifts, perhaps. So anyway, we're gonna introduce you to Michael Ware. He has written a book called Reclaiming Hope, and we have a great 40-minute conversation with him beginning now. It is unbelievable how significant we have become in our own eyes, because we have been getting people who are interested in being on our show, and like this is kind of one of the bigger ones. This is a big fish we're going to talk to today. So Michael Ware wrote a book called Reclaiming Hope, and it's about being a follower of Jesus in the Obama White House. Mm-hmm. He is graciously condescended from his perch in Northern Virginia to join us at the Vox World headquarters in Brea, California via Skype. And my brother, hello, good morning.
Good morning. It's good to be with you.
What's the weather there in Virginia today?
It's beautiful today. So it's like probably 65, 70, and the trees and the flowers outside my office window will probably be blooming pretty soon. So
I like that.
It's perking up around here.
Are you in shorts right now?
No, I am not.
And why not?
I'm not a shorts guy.
Now, is that because other people have told you you're not a shorts guy, or is that because you have a deep and abiding conviction about your own ability to wear shorts? These are very important questions.
I just around the house because we prefer to wear long pants. I'm a long pants guy.
Around the house, you wear long pants.
I do. Yeah.
That's a
I mean,
world.
not like a tuxedo.
Right. See, unlike you, Mike, where you choose to show the glory of your whiteness, from the knees down.
That's right.
Michael is a bit more humble about his glory and reflection of.
I don't know if that's what it is. Are you?
I'm Italian, so my legs are pretty hairy, so I don't know how much reflection is coming off of them.
Then you're already wearing pants. Why would you wear them? Why would you wear them twice? Now that we got that out of the way, Michael. Are you a Star Wars?
This has come up in my previous interviews, I'll tell you that much.
Well, this will, I'm sure this interview will cause you never to say yes to strange requests again. But are you a Star Wars guy? Are you a sci-fi guy? Are you a Lord of the Rings guy? Talk to me.
No, not. I mean, I've watched all the movies, but I'm not kind of, I don't have the topographical map of Middle Earth memorized. But I like the movies. I'm really getting into. There have been a number of great movies about space travel that have come out.
Spaceballs. Flash Gordon.
Interstellar is one of last decade. Arrival, they didn't travel. But Arrival was fantastic. Yeah. So so I've been kind of really enjoying those kinds of movies.
You know, Amy Adams and I would be a good couple.
Is that right?
I just, if God hadn't led me to my sweet wife, I think Amy and I would do well together. I have those kind of eyes, very expressive. All right, Michael, we are so excited to talk to you. So you've written a book called Reclaiming Hope, and I absolutely devoured this thing. And it's about being a Jesus follower in the Obama White House, and all the weirdness that came with that. So tell us just, you're from Buffalo.
Yeah.
Right? Which is near Cleveland. So it's kind of the Cleveland of New York. And so we love each other. But you have this great story about how you met then Senator Obama. Tell us just quickly about how in the world you got roped into a White House position that started with just a weird conversation and a date that is missed.
So I was going to college at George Washington University in D.C. and was supposed to be leading a group to the Democratic Winter Convention in February of 2007.
Were you a Jesus guy at this point?
Yes, I was. And so I got to the hotel, and there's not really much going on there, but it was my first political convention. I kind of figure like I'll open up a door and like the convention will be there. So I walk around the hotel. It's a huge hotel. I spent 5-10 minutes looking for this thing. Finally give up and ask the receptionist, hey, where is this convention? And she goes, oh, honey, that's not for another couple days. And so I had the wrong date for this thing. So I'm walking out embarrassed and dejected through the hotel lobby, and a young senator by the name of Barack Obama is walking in through the lobby from meetings the day or two before the convention. So he would announce he was running for president like the next week, so he didn't have Secret Service with him yet. There wasn't a huge horde of folks trying to get at him. He basically walked up to me. And I had followed his career.
Were you in shorts or were you in long pants at this point?
Well, I was in pants. Thankfully, I don't think I would have gotten the job if I was in shorts.
Okay.
And since I wasn't planning on seeing him, that's why I wear, just in case like he shows up.
in case Hillary drops by, you're ready.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't want to be caught in shorts.
Perfect. All right, it makes sense now.
Yeah. So back to my meeting with the next president of the United States.
Yeah.
So he basically walked up to me. I had followed his career, told him I wanted to work for him, and I thought he should run for president. And he connected me with his body man, a guy Reggie Love, which is the coolest name ever. But I stayed in touch with Reggie and a couple other staffers, and 10 months later I was in Iowa for the Iowa caucus.
Oh my goodness! And then you were you just kind of a regular staffer, or did you have a faith-based position there?
Yeah, so I was doing faith outreach almost from the get-go. Okay. So by the time I got to Iowa, it was really close to the caucus, so we were knocking on doors. Everyone was knocking on doors and kind of doing the get out the vote stuff. But then I went to Chicago, where the headquarters was, and was in the religious affairs department.
Oh my goodness! And then that got parlayed into like a White House thing, right?
Right, and you can't really couldn't have like when I joined the campaign, the president was still polling in single digits in some national polls. So this wasn't like I believed in him. I want to work for him. I thought he'd be a good president, but did not have sort of an expectation at all, or even an imagination for it, really. But yeah, so I. After the campaign, worked on the inaugural, and then went to the White House officially in February of 2009.
And your role was in what office? I mean, I know the answers to these things because I read it, but
so I was in the Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. It's a White House office that was started by George W. Bush to help be a resource to the faith community and smaller nonprofits to serve those in need.
So this is Obama's secret Muslim outreach to his brotherhood, correct?
That's right. Yes.
What was that?
And you broke it. It's not a secret anymore.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So breaking news on Vox Podcast.
Now, what was that? Okay, so you're a Christian. Let's consider all of the angles. So you're a Christian in a Democratic White House, called by some as the most pro-choice candidate ever. How was that all reconciling in you, in terms of your personal convictions versus serving at the pleasure of the president?
Yeah, well, right. So, so it's just that, serving at the pleasure of the president. So, right, at some level, there's no reconciliation because I'm still me, and just because I'm working for a job doesn't mean that I don't have opinions on things. Now, I agree on the vast set of issues with the president. So I was there I supported the president's political agenda. I'm glad he won in 2008 and 2012. But there were some issues that I had different opinion on. So it was keeping in mind I did serve at the pleasure of the president. Nobody elected me. Yeah. And so part of my job was to make sure that voices from the faith community were represented in policy and outreach discussions. And so I was able to play that role. But you become really sensitive to the fact of the burden that the office holder has, and the fact that I read about this a little bit in the book. This isn't just for the president; it was for other staff there. There's a responsibility with the decisions that you make that are going to be felt by the person in office, right, by folks who are more in senior staff, and so you just got to be sensitive about that and serve as well as you can. I never felt like I was put in a position where I had to do something that was, deeply against my conscience. A lot of that was because I was in the faith-based office, right, where our primary role was to help the president navigate religious issues and then to help faith communities work with the government to serve those in need. So it was a pretty specific kind of role.
What was it like to be in a faith-based office and yet have such heat coming from many of the faith-based communities of the conservative stripe? So you've got Driscoll tweeting out this, he doesn't know Jesus. You've got conservative Christians, rallying for Mormon. You've got, it just seems like there was a constant drip of he's Muslim, he's Kenyan, so what was that like?
Yeah, so part of it is just our politics right now, so George W. Bush faced heat from other aspects of the faith community. So some of it wasn't overly specific to Barack Obama. I had a really good understanding that developed further as I worked for the president longer and worked in politics longer, that if I sought to get my identity from politics, and if I sought to view sort of political affiliations and those kind of squabbles as like a primary indicator of my faith, then it was just not going to work out, and I don't think it would be wise or theologically sort of right way to go about it. And so, it was, So it.
Were you surprised? Were you surprised by some of the heat?
There are reasons for all of it. So, right, I write in the 4th chapter of Reclaiming Hope, I talk about and this is going to sound, for those listening, read the chapter so you can get a better sense of what I'm talking about. But I talked through, what I call like some of the sincere reasons people could think that the president wasn't a Christian. The fact,
right.
A sincere person, there might be better ways to go about it, but a sincere person could say, well, I believe a Christian goes to church. The president hasn't selected a church in the White House, and so now I've walked through that decision and why that decision was made. But there are reasons for a lot of the things that happen in public life. Now, would it hurt me if especially if family members, friends back home, folks at churches I was visiting would issue crass sort of accusations and that kind of thing. Yeah, but that wasn't about faith, right? That was just, why are you being so mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What was the thing I found fascinating were the instructions given to that office. You said there were 4 things, 4 priorities, and strengthening the role of community organizations in economic recovery, reducing unintended pregnancies, supporting responsible fatherhood and strong communities, promoting interfaith dialogue and cooperation, which you kind of like, wow, who could argue with those? And wasn't there wasn't part of the subtext of this reducing the need for abortions, right?
Yeah. No, it absolutely was. The president made that explicit both in the executive order that you're reading from and also in his first 5 months in office. He went to Notre Dame and gave a speech about how he wanted to find common ground on the issue of abortion in a pretty unprecedented way. I mean, typically when Democrats go to speak at Catholic institutions, they'll give remarks on poverty or the environment or immigration issues where there are more where the common ground is a little more clear. But the president said, I don't want to do that. I want to go right into the maelstrom, right into the heart of what makes things difficult for us to work together sometimes, and he did that in a pretty bold way.
Did you find that there were a large number of social conservatives who were willing to play in that sort of common ground area?
No, there were some, and we worked with them. Part of the dynamics around that was pro-life activists, particularly those in D.C., just didn't want to give the president the ability to say that he found common ground on abortion, particularly when they had tried to defeat him in 2008 by saying he'd be the most pro-abortion president. Well, you can't really, if you're a pro-life organization, you can't really work with the guy that you said was going to be the most pro-abortion president. I mean, the cake is already baked in many ways, and so that was a real problem. We could have made headway not just on policy grounds, which we did, anyways, but on sort of cultural grounds and on bringing folks together. But again, as I lay out in the book, for both sides were to blame for that failure, and part of it was pro-life community just not wanting to sort of feeling like it would be ceding leverage to do anything other than raise alarm bells about everything the president was doing.
What did you learn about how to be a Jesus follower in the public square? Like if you've got, so we have a whole bunch of people who are so sick of politics they just want to opt out, and you make a very passionate case for why they should not.
Yeah.
But what's positive political engagement look like? So that's an example of political engagement that actually hinders the good work we're trying to do. Where were examples of Christians or socially conservative faith groups that really got this right? So what's that look? If somebody was like, okay, well, how do I be political in a Jesus kind of way? What's that look like?
Well, there are so many, and that's why, I wrote the book, because what I'm talking about is possible, and I know it's possible because I've seen it happen day after day. I mean, every day I was in the White House, I got to work with a faith-based group that was quietly serving people in a way that was profound and helpful. And I could tell you about hundreds of nonprofits that are doing amazing, all the way from, World Vision to this little nonprofit called Interfaith Furnishings. I think they're in New Jersey, and they provide furniture to from an interfaith group of houses of worship, and they deliver furniture to folks who need it, who can't afford furniture.
That's awesome.
At their homes. I mean, it's incredible. And so it's happening already. So you don't need to look far. As far as sort of political engagement, I mean, I'll give you. So I have a buddy, Tyler Wigg Stevenson.
Yep.
Tyler, you may know Tyler. He wrote the best Christian book of 2015, in my opinion. The World Is Not Ours to Save.
Yep.
And he's founded an organization called the Two Futures Project that is raising Christian awareness and advocacy around nuclear disarmament. If it wasn't for the work that Tyler and Two Futures Project did in partnership with the Catholic bishops, we wouldn't have been able to get the New START treaty done. And that the president's national security advisor would say that. So the nuclear arsenals of the U.S. and Russia are less because Christians were proactively engaging in politics. The same could be said for an organization or a coalition called the Circle of Protection that was everyone from National Association of Evangelicals to Sojourners to, I think, Bread for the World and National Council of Churches. So really a diverse Christian coalition said that our budget shouldn't be balanced at the backs of those most in need, and that we shouldn't be making deep cuts into social the social safety net. And they won. The cuts that Republicans were seeking were not advanced. So I could tell you many stories of across the board, across the political spectrum of Christians.
What do they have in common?
Way. Yeah, a few things. One, they're other-centered.
Good.
And that is because our politics is increasingly self-interested and self-focused. But Christians can be salt and light in politics because we find our security elsewhere. And so when we go into politics, we're not looking for affirmation. We're not looking solely to sort of, have, express ourselves or kind of make ourselves known. We're freed up to engage in politics for the sake of others. Sorry about that.
That's all right. It could be the president.
Yeah, it could be. I just hung up on him. So they're other-centered. They are they're committed. They make commitments. Their engagement is not fleeting or sporadic. They make commitments. And then the third thing I'd say is that there's a humility that acknowledges both that what they're advocating for is not the utmost or the ultimate, but also a humility that allows them to advocate for something because they understand that sort of the weight of the world is not on their shoulders, and that their responsibility is just to steward the information and the knowledge and the resources that they have at the moment towards the good as they're able to see it. And so those would be three factors: humility, commitment, and an other-centeredness.
When you talk about some of your experiences, or when people read them, what are Christians or social sort of conservatives? And I know those are not interchangeable, but I mean the socially conservative Christians. What are they most surprised about when they hear about the Obama White House or the president and his family? What shocks them?
By far, they can't believe all of the Christian things that the president said while he was in office. I mean, so I go through in chapters 4 and 5, in particular, his National Prayer Breakfast speeches, and quote a bit from his Easter Prayer Breakfast speeches, which are Easter Prayer Breakfast is a tradition he started in 2010 that continued for the rest of his time in office, where he would reflect on the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ and what it meant for his life in the East Room of the White House in front of 160 Christian leaders. I mean, like, people don't know that even existed. But you read those statements and people are like, wow, I can't believe. Now they may say, well, you know, someone wrote it for him and, you know, it's politics, which it is. Like, we shouldn't pretend that he's not a politician.
Right.
But he also said those things out loud. You know,
yeah.
Like there's a certain, whatever caveats you want to place on it. He said them in you know, publicly in statements that are on whitehouse.gov.
Yep.
As long as the Trump administration.
I was going to say, are they still there?
Yeah.
Since most of the site's been scrubbed.
Hasn't scrubbed them out yet.
I mean, it would be interesting. You know, I don't know. Did you have any insight into, you know, what President Obama must have been thinking when he saw President Trump win, and the indictment and all of that represented? And do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was utter disappointment. Folks were, it surprised most everyone. I think I think he thinks that he would have won a third term.
Yeah.
You know, if you ran. So I think that's, you know, that you know, I think that's certainly like, I don't think that he thinks it was all because of him that there's not a Democrat in the White House.
Right. Right.
I think if Hillary would have won, he may have taken a bit of a longer vacation. He wouldn't be ramping up the Obama Foundation as quickly as he is.
Right.
Some of his top aides may have gone on longer vacations and not spoken out so early on politics. But actually, I think it's an invigorating. Remember, he's a young guy. We haven't had a post presidency that will last, you know, as long as, you know, God willing, you know, His will,
right.
Really, like, ever. And so, you know, it's going to be obviously, you know, Bill Clinton is comparable, but it's going to be very interesting to see how that works out. But I think he feels invigorated by the fact that this is just another chapter in our democracy.
Yeah, that is interesting. Do you, when you were in the office of faith-based neighborhood development and those sorts of things, you know, there was this very big movement against some of the president's policies, particularly as they pertain to Obamacare, the contraception mandate, some of the executive, you know, guidance about transgender bathrooms. I mean, and those sorts of things. I mean, so you know, you say there was, from the conservative side, there was a war on religion. That's what they were saying, and then from the progressive side, it was a war on women.
Right.
What was the truth of that in your mind, as you were personally representing the Obama administration to faith communities who were in revolt? What were those conversations like? Yeah.
Well, right. So an entire chapter of my book looks at the HHS mandate, the contraception mandate issue. I have a chapter on the president's evolution on gay marriage. So I look at all of this pretty in depth and
yep.
with as clear-eyed as I could. You know, so this is part of the theme of those chapters, is that these sort of political attacks had substantive policy concerns at their core, but those aren't good enough for our politics anymore. Now we need to say, you know, that you know, Barack Obama's waking up every morning wondering how he could destroy the church, and, you know, Speaker Boehner and Paul Ryan are want to, you know, drag women back to the 1950s or 1850s or whatever century Democrats are, you know, yapping about now. So there were real serious policy disagreements. They had really important implications on both sides. But folks need to understand that there were, in politics, there are almost always, or I guess I should say, it's best to assume until proven otherwise that there are positive, and I don't mean positive in a value sense. I just mean positive in terms of there are positive things that people are aiming for. So the contraception mandate, from the administration's perspective, was not about limiting the religious freedom of religious institutions. It was about expanding access to what they consider to be a fundamental, necessary, essential health service in contraception to millions of more women than had access to it before.
Right.
So we could debate that. We could debate whether our employer-based health insurance system is the best way to deliver contraception, particularly when it invokes and involves religious organizations. But that's a whole other argument than why is Barack Obama, trying to destroy the church today?
Right. Yeah. Well, and then you had the Louis Giglio thing. I don't know, on the inaugural prayer, were you were involved in that, correct?
Yeah.
In terms of the selection of him, and then the furor that went around when, I don't know, it was tape recorded comments in a sermon from like 15 years ago. I mean, you really sat through a lot of religious stuff in ways that, I don't know that George W. did. So this is just interesting. And you do, I will say it to our listeners, you do a great job of being gracious and honest about even where you were at with some of this stuff and what you were recommending, and you got overridden. So that was, I mean, for those of us who sat through the culture wars that all of this was producing, it's really interesting to get a kind of insider's perspective on it. I'm still fascinated though by now that you're out of that, how did your Jesus following affect your political activism? How did it then, and how does it now? Because I think that's the thing people have a hard time putting together.
Well, I mean, right. So I think all the things we spoke about earlier, definitely imperfectly, but I try to engage politically in a way that is other-centered, in a way that reflects commitments, in a way that has humility that doesn't lend itself either to self-importance or impotence, which humility at its best is a guard against both. And it's just a perspective that even in days when I was working 16, 18 hours a day, and when I was the issues we were working on were not hidden from folks. Right, when you're in the White House, they're on the front page of the newspaper, and but a perspective that it's not about it's not about me, that this is not the primary sort of moment or happening in the universe.
Right.
That allows you to engage in politics in a healthier way.
Yeah, that's huge. That is absolutely huge. If politics is a source of life, value, identity, you approach it one way. If it's not, you approach it from a completely different place. Why did you? What was behind the Reclaiming Hope kind of title? What needs reclaimed?
Well, yeah, I mean, hope has just become so loaded with just common usage.
Yeah.
With people loading onto hope a whole range of political solutions and programs and self-help kind of stuff that everyone's talking about hope, but everyone wants to talk about hope, but there's a haunting in our culture that people don't really know what they could hope for.
Right.
And so to reclaim hope, I wanted to make sure. I believe hope is going to be a primary resource for us in the years and decades ahead, especially the American church. Yeah. And so, if we if we're able to have our feet planted in the right spot, then all of these engagements and all of these challenges will be fine. But if we think that politics or culture is sort of where we need to ground ourselves, we're going to be on sinking sand.
Oh.
And so reclaiming hope is about, in the dictionary it says that to reclaim is to make land that was not fit for use, like a wasteland, fit for use once again. And so that's kind of the idea of the book. Let's walk readers through what it looks like to see our politics up close. Because one of the worst things is a book on hope that is from someone who doesn't deal with the actual realities of life.
Right.
So people read it and go, well, this guy seems like he's never faced any real challenges or doesn't know kind of what's going on.
Right.
Part of the idea with the book was to walk readers through the best and the worst of our politics, and come out on the other side and say, this isn't a book about the young idealist who becomes a cynic. This is a book about someone who saw our politics up close and came up on the other side with a firmer, more lasting hope than he had.
I love that. Come on. All right, one last question for you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. I know these are sort of cheesy general questions, but I'm genuinely curious as to your answer. If you had a bully pulpit and could just say anything to the socially conservative church, what would you say? And what would you say about just now and how to be now and what the perceptions are now? And what would you say the progressive side of the church about a political engagement and a counsel you would give them in the kind of polarized place we live in now?
Yeah. So you want to. I just want to be careful about speaking too generally about folks, right? There's great diversity even in progressive Christianity and sort of more socially conservative. But to social conservatives, my general temptation is to speak really high up, but I'll actually give really practical advice, which is there are things that you wanted to accomplish politically that are more possible now than they were before. But if 4 years from now, 8 years from now, the pro-life movement or the pro-family movement or whatever is identified with President Trump, all of your victories will be on hollow ground, and it will collapse underneath your feet. And so social conservatives need to be thinking practically about the opportunities to make gains that they want to make in the short term, and some of those might be wise. But if they're not also thinking on a parallel track about how they make sure that their movement is defined separately and apart from Donald Trump and this administration, then their ability to effectively advocate beyond Donald Trump is going to be really seriously hindered. And so that would be my advice to social conservatives. For progressive Christians, let me just need to be. I think progressive Christians tend to feel a bit isolated and a bit that they don't feel like they're embraced by sort of the loudest parts of the American Christian church, and then they also feel like they have to maybe hide their faith, or it just doesn't resonate with progressives. I would say to them, you need to be really careful about not identifying yourself and taking pride in who you are not, as opposed to who you are. So I think there's a great temptation for progressive Christians to wear T-shirts that says on the front of them, "I'm not that kind of Christian," and that can lead to some pretty dangerous places. And so so that would be if progressive Christianity is growing, if it's becoming more public, and I think I don't know how true that narrative is, but you want to make sure that you're more about what you're for than what you're against, or more about who you are than who you are not.
Dang. So, yeah. Michael, man, really good stuff, dude. Thank you. You've added some wonderful contour to conversations we've been having on the podcast for months.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the book is Reclaiming Hope, found all over the place, highly recommended by the Vox team, or at least one of us who've read it. And there's another one that doesn't read much.
Well, Mike reads books in like an hour, and I've watched about an hour worth of Michael and listened to him for a little more than that. So, for what it's worth.
Okay. So, bro, thank you so much, man. Give us the name of what you're involved with now. What's the name of the foundation?
I run a consulting firm called Public Square Strategies.
Nice.
And then I founded with my buddy Alan Noble an organization called Public Faith. And so if you're interested in a fresh, life-giving kind of Christian political engagement, check out Public Faith on Facebook, online, publicfaith.us. You could sign up, get updates. We're in a reorg period after the election, but you're going to want to stay tuned.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of interviews, you've been through many. Where would you rank this one in terms of just general friendliness, precision and in-depth questions, knowledge of the material, good looks? I mean, where do we rank?
On a scale of shorts to long pants, this was like a jorts, I think.
There's texture to that because we're talking jeans and shorts and length.
Oh, my goodness. That was the best answer of the day right there.
That's a new scale.
Yes.
That's a new scale for us.
Well, many blessings to you, my friend. Thank you for what you do. We're benefiting from it all the way out here. And just get outside today, man. Get outside. You've just described our Tuesday, every Tuesday. However, you need to get outside. Get some sun on those legs. Let's go.
All right. See you guys.
See you.
Thank you so much, man. So, sorry that his email thing kept blowing up.
Pinging.
and he hangs up on the president. But I hope that for some of you, unlike Andy, who read books, you may want to check this one out. But there is this kind of movement now that I'm aware of, that he's a part of, okay, we need to reimagine Jesus following in the public sphere. This is not working. This is harming our witness. Even whatever policy gains we get in the long run, like he said, I mean, we're really going to come back around to haunt us. And so there's just a whole crew of folks that we're part of that are out there reimagining these things. So love that we were able to have him on. Engage with him. Great guy. Andy, you want to add anything? I mean, I felt like it was a jorts. It was for sure.
Yeah, a jorts episode.
Yes.
So that comes in probably around maybe a 4 or a 5.
No, I think like if it was capris, it would be a 4 or 5. Jorts, man, I'm a fan.
But are we saying jeans shorts or are we saying jeggings? I mean, that's where you see. That's where I'm a little.
Okay, it could be.
It's
confusing.
murky. That's murky.
So it sounds like when he walks down like the hall in shorts, it sounds like corduroy. I mean, that's the issue. The issue isn't his fondness for pants. The issue is his aversion.
Yes.
To something like corduroy.
Aversion to shorts.
Yeah, exactly. And shorts are not for everybody.
Right.
And we're okay. It's safe. But anyway, we continually are excited to introduce you to people that we've benefited from, and we've got a couple more interviews coming in the next several weeks. Easter's coming, so get ready for that. And that's all I got. Andy, anything?
That's it. Nothing.
All right. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance to you. May he bless your white legs, if they're white, or if they're colored, bless colored legs, or if they're Asian, bless Asian legs, or if they're Mexican, bless Mexican legs. Whatever legs you've got, may the Lord bless them and give you peace. Amen.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Vox Podcast. Learn more about us at voxpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at the Vox Podcast, and now support us on Patreon at patreon.com/VoxPodcast.